You smell horrible. Have you even heard of a shower? The words hit like a slap, echoing across the sidewalk as the morning rush passed by, most people pretending not to hear, but not all. Some slowed down just enough to smirk, others to gawk. No one stopped. No one defended him. Robert didn't flinch, he just looked up. Sweat on his brow, hands stained with polish, knees aching from hours spent crouched on concrete. He'd heard worse, he'd lived through worse. But still, something about the man towering above him made this sting more than usual. A crisp navy suit, gold watch, sunglasses that probably cost more than Robert made in a week. He wasn't just rich, he was proud of being cruel. The man lifted his newly shined shoe and inspected it with theatrical flair. "There you go, sir. All set," Robert said, voice low and calm. The man smirked. "Here, fetch." He flicked a crumpled bill at Robert's feet like tossing scraps to a stray dog. A few people chuckled. One woman gasped, but no one moved. Robert slowly reached for the money, his fingers brushing the pavement. "Appreciate that," he said softly, folding it into his shirt pocket without looking up. "Why don't you take some pride in your appearance?" The man continued, loud enough for bystanders to hear. "You might get more customers if you didn't look like poverty." Robert gave a nod, his default reaction to the thousand small humiliations that came with the job. He wasn't shining shoes for pride, he was doing it for love. But no one ever asked. Just then, a young man in a gray jacket approached and sat down on the folding chair in front of him. "You got time for one more?" Robert looked up, eyes tired but warm. "Sure thing, take a seat." They chatted as Robert worked. Small talk, weather, football. "Where are you from?" the young man asked. "Texas originally. Moved here 20 years back with my wife." "What brought you to the city?" Robert hesitated. "That's a long story." He didn't get to finish. "Hey!" A sharp voice cut in. A police officer stomped up to them. "Didn't I tell you not to come around here with your shoeshine nonsense?" "I'm sorry, officer," Robert said, wiping his hands on a cloth. "I'm just finishing up here." "Can't you see you're bothering everyone?" the officer barked. "They don't want to see your face. It makes them sad." The young man stood up. "Sir, he's not bothering me." "I didn't ask for your opinion," the officer snapped back. Robert bowed his head and started packing up. "I'll be on my way." "No charge," he added to the young man. "Didn't even get to finish." But the young man paused. "Wait, hold on." He reached into his wallet and pulled out a bill. "Here, for your time." Robert looked at the 20 in disbelief. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." Thank you, sir." "You know all he's going to do is spend that on booze," the rich man called out from a distance. But this time, no one laughed. The sidewalk was quiet. And Robert just walked away. What the rich man didn't know, what the officer didn't care to ask, was why Robert shined shoes on this corner every morning. Why were his hands raw? Why did he never beg, just worked? And what they definitely didn't know was that this so-called nobody was about to change more lives than they ever imagined, including their own. By the time the sun dipped low over the city skyline, Robert had packed up what little he had, his wooden shine box, a folding chair with a wobbly leg, and an old rag stuffed in his back pocket. The sidewalk was nearly empty now. Rush hour had passed. The crowd no longer cared. He shuffled slowly down a side street, past the same cracked brick walls, the same faded for lease signs, the same diner that once gave him free coffee until new management took over and cut him off. But he wasn't headed to a shelter. He wasn't homeless, not exactly. He had a home, if you could call it that. It was a rusted-out van parked 3 blocks from the underpass, covered in a tarp that barely held against the wind. The passenger seat had become a storage bin, the back seat a closet, and the floor was where his wife slept. Her name was Mary, and she was the reason he got out of bed every single morning. He pulled back the flap of the tarp and quietly stepped inside. Mary was lying beneath a blanket, her frame too thin, her eyes dull but warm when they met his. "Hey, baby," she whispered, her voice cracked but soft. "You're back late." Robert smiled and set down his box. "Had a couple of last-minute customers." He reached into a brown paper bag and pulled out a small container. "Got your favorite, chicken soup, still warm." Her eyes lit up. "You remembered the cornbread?" He grinned, pulled it from his pocket, wrapped it in napkins to keep it soft. They ate together in silence, the kind of silence only 2 people in deep love could share without it feeling awkward. But then, as she set the spoon down, Mary looked at him, not just looked but studied him. "You didn't eat." "I already did," he lied. Mary reached for his hand. "Robert, please don't lie to make me feel better." He let out a slow breath, then finally sat down beside her. "You know what I hate most?" she asked, voice trembling. "That I'm such a burden to you. You deserve more than this life, more than this van, more than a wife who costs more in medical bills than she's worth." Robert didn't let her finish. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears before they could fall. "You're not a burden, Mary. You're my wife. You're my reason. You're the only thing that makes this life worth waking up for." She closed her eyes, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the wind howled through the gaps in the tarp, but inside that van, it was quiet, peaceful. "I've been saving up," he said finally. "Every shine, every tip, every dollar. I'm gonna get us a place, a real one, with running water, a real bed, somewhere you can heal." She smiled, though it wavered. "That's what we said last year." He nodded. "Then maybe we just need to pray a little harder." The next morning came fast. The van was freezing. Robert boiled water on a small camping stove to make instant coffee. He poured half into a cracked mug and handed it to Mary with both hands like it was a treasure. Then he got dressed. White shirt, black vest, polished shoes. Ironic, considering the job. He still tucked in his shirt every morning, still slicked back his graying hair with a comb he kept wrapped in a plastic bag. He still had pride, even if the world told him he shouldn't. As he packed up to leave, Mary reached for his hand. "Don't forget your lunch." He turned to see a small Tupperware container, rice, beans, and a single hard-boiled egg. He smiled. "You made this? Used the burner last night when you were asleep. Might not be hot, but it's made with love." He kissed her forehead. "That's all I ever need." And then, just like that, Robert stepped out into the cold again, back to the corner where no one really saw him. Around noon, a young man in a hoodie approached. He looked familiar. "Back again?" Robert asked. The man smiled. "Yeah, I actually came to see you." Robert raised an eyebrow. "That right?" The man sat down. "I followed you yesterday. Not far, just enough to see where you went. And I saw her. Your wife." Robert tensed. "Why?" "I wasn't stalking. I needed to understand. You see, my mom passed away from cancer 2 years ago. I remember what it did to her, what it did to us." Robert's face softened. The young man continued. "I saw you give her food before you even ate. I saw how gently you held her hand. And I realized you're not just a man shining shoes. You're a man fighting for someone." Robert swallowed the lump in his throat. "How long has she been sick?" the man asked. 4 years. The treatments drained everything. Sold our house, sold the car. Every shoe I shine gets us a few dollars closer to the next round." The man nodded slowly. "And you think you'll make it?" "I know I will," Robert said, "because she's not just my wife. She's the light in my darkness. I'd sleep on broken concrete every night if it meant she gets one more chance." The young man sat back, silent for a beat. "Have you ever thought about working somewhere else? Something more permanent?" Robert chuckled. "You know how hard it is to get hired when your address is a license plate number? Maybe it's time someone changed that," the man said quietly. Back at the van that night, Robert sat with Mary again, rubbing warmth into her hands. "How was today?" she asked. He hesitated. "Strange. Maybe good. I don't know yet." She smiled. "Sometimes good things start strangely." He looked at her. "I think maybe, just maybe, someone out there still sees us." Mary reached for his hand. "That's all we need. One person to believe." Robert nodded. "And if that's true, everything could change." He didn't know it yet, but the stranger in the hoodie had already made a call. And by the time morning came, Robert's quiet corner was about to become the stage for a moment that would shift everything. Not just for him, not just for Mary, but for anyone who ever doubted the power of a second chance. The next morning, the city stirred to life with its usual mix of honking horns, clacking heels, and street vendors barking over each other. But Robert was already at his spot. Same corner, same shine box, same quiet dignity. He wiped down his folding chair, aligning it just right as if preparing for a guest of honor. Something about today felt different. Across the street, in a cafe window, a man watched him. Hood down, coffee in hand. He hasn't approached yet. He just observed, eyes sharp, unreadable. Robert didn't notice him at first. Instead, he greeted a man in a business suit who paused to check his watch. "Shine your shoes, sir?" "Quick and clean." man waved him off without a word. Typical. But minutes later another man approached. Not to sit, not to chat, to harass. It was him again, the officer from 2 days ago. Only this time he wasn't alone. Another uniform trailed behind him, bulkier, sterner, and meaner. "Didn't I explicitly tell you to stay off this corner?" the officer barked, shoving Robert's shoulder hard enough to make him stumble. Robert steadied himself. "Please, officer, I'm not bothering anyone. I'm just shining shoes without a permit on private property. That's bothering everyone." "No one's complained," Robert said quietly. "I promise I'll leave right after this last shine." "You promise?" the second cop chuckled. "That's rich. What's next? You gonna promise to pay rent on a sidewalk?" "I just need a little more time," Robert said. "Please." The officer bent down, grabbed the shin box, and yanked it from Robert's grip. "You can explain it to the judge. You're under arrest." "No, wait. Please, that box is my whole livelihood." The two officers moved fast, twisting Robert's arms behind him, dragging him across the pavement. People watched. No one moved. A few took out their phones, but most just stared. That's when he stepped in. The man from the cafe. Same one who tipped Robert days ago. Same one who'd followed him home. He walked calmly, steadily, cutting through the scene like a shadow parting light. "What's going on here?" he asked, voice smooth but cold. "This doesn't concern you," the arresting officer snapped. "Keep walking." "It concerns me now," the man said, pulling out a sleek wallet, "because I'm the largest donor to Commissioner Mundy's last election campaign, and I know he'd be very interested in seeing how his officers treat a man trying to make an honest living." The two cops froze. Robert blinked in disbelief. The man continued, "You're harassing a working man. For what? Cleaning shoes? Making a few bucks? Do you treat every entrepreneur like this? Or just the ones who sleep in vans?" Look, sir," the first officer stammered. "He's operating without a permit, and technically, the man cut him off. You're abusing your authority. You've already manhandled him in public, confiscated his property, and threatened arrest, all of which I just recorded." He held up his phone. The officer's face paled. The man smiled, not kind, not smug. Controlled, calculated. "I suggest you put that shine box down, uncuff the man, and walk away before this ends up on the news, or worse, on the commissioner's desk." A tense beat passed. The second officer grunted and stepped back. The first one reluctantly unlocked the cuffs. Robert rubbed his wrists, speechless. The man handed him the shiny box. "You all right?" Robert nodded slowly. Yeah, I think so. You won't have to deal with that again." They stepped to the side, away from the lingering stares. "Why'd you do that?" Robert asked. "Why risk getting involved?" The man shrugged. "Because I hate bullies, and because I've been watching you." Robert raised an eyebrow. "You're educated. You have discipline. You've got drive. And yet here you are, scraping to survive, working harder than half the people in those glass towers behind you." Robert looked down. "Come work for me," the man said. Robert blinked. "What?" "My company needs someone like you. Someone who knows real pressure. Someone who can lead without being handed everything." "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. I've got an opening in financial ops. You've got the degree, you've got the story, you've got grit." Robert hesitated. "But I haven't worked in finance since." "Doesn't matter. I'll train you. Just show up Monday." Robert swallowed hard, emotions threatening to rise. "I'll be there." That night, Robert returned to the van with news he never thought he'd bring. Mary was curled up in her blanket, pale but alert. "You're glowing," she said, surprised. "You get a raise?" "Better," Robert said, kneeling beside her. "I got a job." She blinked, unsure if she heard him right. "What kind of job?" "Corporate, real salary, health insurance, a desk with my name on it." Mary stared, tears filling her eyes. "How?" "Someone saw me," he said simply. "Really saw me, and he believed." She smiled, weeping now. I knew someone would." The following Monday, Robert walked through the gleaming glass doors of a downtown high-rise. His shoes were polished by someone else this time. His shirt was new, and his resume was printed crisp and clean. At the front desk, the receptionist stood up when he approached. "You must be Mr. Evans," she said with a smile. "They're expecting you." Robert paused at the elevator doors, his reflection shimmering in the chrome. For the first time in years, he didn't see a man who had lost everything. He saw a man who was just getting started, but not everything would come easily. Just 2 weeks into the job, his first quarterly presentation was due. The pressure was intense, deadlines tight. Some doubted him. "You sure this guy can handle it?" One exec whispered. "He was homeless a month ago," another murmured. Robert heard every word, but he didn't flinch. He worked late, learned fast, and asked questions. When the day of the presentation came, he stood in front of the boardroom and delivered projections so sharp, so visionary, it stunned the room. 3 minutes of silence followed. Then the CEO stood up, slow clapping. "Welcome to the team." That evening, Robert brought home something new. A key. He unlocked the door to a small apartment. Not big, not fancy, but theirs. Mary stood in the doorway, her hospital bag already packed. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. "Let's go get better." Robert sat at his new desk, a modest corner in the open-plan office, with a window that overlooked a world he used to sleep beneath. His hands moved confidently over spreadsheets now, not shoeshine cloths. He wore a pressed shirt, tie slightly askew, but nobody cared. What they cared about was the numbers he delivered. And he delivered. In just 4 weeks, Robert had increased processing speed by 30%, streamlined a failing department, and, without even knowing it, impressed the board enough to land on their radar. But none of it compared to what was really on his mind. Mary. The hospital bills, the second round of treatment. The reality was that even with this new job, they were still short by tens of thousands of dollars. He'd made progress, but not enough. Not yet. That's when the stranger called again. "Robert," the voice came through the phone, calm as ever. "I was wondering if you could step into my office." It wasn't a request. Robert walked in a few minutes later, unsure what to expect. The man, now known to him as Daniel Whitaker, founder and CEO of Whitaker Group, was standing near the window, staring out at the city. Without turning around, Daniel spoke. "You told me your wife needed a second round of treatment." "Yes, sir," Robert replied. "Chemo. It's aggressive, but it might buy us time." Daniel turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "How short are you?" Robert hesitated. "About 250,000. Daniel nodded, reached into his desk drawer, and pulled out a white envelope. "I want you to take this." Robert opened it and froze. It wasn't just a check. It was a check for $250,000. Signed, dated. His name is on it. I can't accept this," Robert stammered. This is too much." Daniel stepped closer, his voice quieter now. "It's not charity, it's repayment." "For what?" Robert asked, overwhelmed. Daniel took a long breath. 10 years ago, I lost someone, my wife Julia. She fought cancer for 18 months. We tried everything. Traveled to Europe, experimental treatments, naturopaths. Nothing worked." He paused, eyes clouding over. "The worst part wasn't the diagnosis. It wasn't even watching her wither away. I felt helpless, having all this money, all these connections, and still losing." He looked directly at Robert now. "But you reminded me of who I used to be, the man who believed love could save someone, and watching you fight for your wife, it brought something back." Robert's hands trembled around the envelope. "Please," Daniel said, softer now. "Let me help. It's what Julia would have wanted." That night, Robert sat beside Mary's hospital bed, holding her hand as she drifted off to sleep. The IV line beeped steadily beside her. Her skin was pale, eyes sunken, but she was alive and being treated. The check had gone through. She was receiving care. Real care. He didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, he just whispered to her, "We made it, baby. We're not done. Not by a long shot." 2 weeks later, Robert stood in front of the boardroom again, this time not as the new guy, but as the man whose strategies had saved a flailing department. He presented like he belonged, and when he finished, the applause said it all. Afterward, Daniel called him into his office again. But this time, he wasn't alone. Mary was there, standing beside the window, in a navy dress Daniel's assistant had picked out, hair tied back, smile small but real. Robert blinked. "What's going on?" Mary looked at Daniel, then back at her husband. "I wanted to thank you, in person, for everything you've done for me." "It wasn't me," Daniel said, smiling. "It was this guy right here. And if it's all right with you, Mary, I'd like to offer him something more." Robert turned. "More?" "I want you to be my director of financial operations. It comes with a full team, double the pay, and stock options. You've more than earned it." Robert was stunned. "I don't know what to say." Daniel stepped forward. "Say yes, and say you'll keep showing them what's possible when you give good people a real shot." Mary's eyes welled with tears as she held Robert's hand. "Say yes." He did. 6 months passed. Mary was in remission. Robert had traded his van for a modest home in the suburbs. His new team called him boss, and interns looked up to him like a legend, but he never forgot where he came from. One afternoon, Daniel found him in the break room sipping coffee. "Have you ever thought about opening your own foundation?" Daniel asked. Robert smiled. "What would I call it?" Daniel leaned against the counter. "How about the Shine Project?" Robert laughed. "That sounds cheesy." Daniel grinned. "Sometimes the truth is cheesy." Robert nodded slowly. "Yeah, but it sticks." It was a Friday afternoon, late spring. The kind of day where the sky looked freshly painted, where the breeze felt like a quiet reminder that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Inside the grand hall of the Whitaker Foundation building, a crowd gathered. Suits and dresses, press badges, and TV crews. On stage stood a podium, draped in deep blue velvet, and behind it a new logo, the Shine Project. At the center of it all stood Robert, not in scuffed shoes or a wrinkled shirt. No, today he wore a tailored navy suit, a silver tie, and confidence that lit up the room more than any spotlight could. He cleared his throat, eyes scanning the crowd, and then he spoke, not like a businessman, not like a public figure, but like a man who had once lost everything and found purpose in the ruins. 16 months ago, Robert began, I was on a street corner path trying to earn $5 to feed my wife. I had no office, no team, no audience, just a box of polish and a prayer. He paused, letting the silence settle. But today, we launched something that will outlive all of us. He gestured to the sign behind him. The Shine Project isn't just a foundation, it's a belief that no one is too small to rise, that behind every beggar, addict, nuisance, there's a story, a reason, a human being. Applause rippled through the room. But Robert wasn't finished. I was told I didn't belong, that I was a blight to society, that I smelled like failure. He smiled gently. But a stranger saw me. He didn't see my clothes or my broken shoes. He saw the man behind the shine. He turned toward the front row, where Daniel Whitaker sat, smiling, misty-eyed. And because of him, I got the one thing no resume or diploma can promise, a second chance. When the speech ended, the room rose to its feet. It wasn't just applause. It was gratitude, respect, and something deeper. Recognition. Robert stepped down from the stage and made his way through the crowd. Reporters tried to stop him, donors wanted handshakes, but he only had eyes for one person, Mary. She stood near the back in a long blue dress, her hair fuller now, cheeks no longer hollow. She looked radiant, alive in every sense of the word. As he approached, she smiled. "You didn't even stutter." He laughed. "I practiced on the mirror so much it cracked." She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "You did it." "No," he said, "we did." Later that evening, the three of them, Robert, Mary, and Daniel, sat on a rooftop overlooking the city. Paper lanterns hung from strings, casting soft, golden light around them. The clinking of glasses, murmurs of old friends, and soft jazz played in the background. Daniel raised his glass to second chances. Robert clicked his, and to the people brave enough to give them. Mary sipped her champagne, eyes distant. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Robert and Daniel turned to her. "That day, the worst one, when the cop grabbed your shine box and you came back to the van with bruised wrists and still smiled." Robert nodded. "I remember. You said something that night." She looked at him. "You said, we just need one person to believe in us. And now," she said, looking out at the skyline, "you're that person for hundreds." Down on the streets, just beneath the rooftop glow, a young man sat on a crate beside a battered shoe sign kit. His hands trembled with cold, his clothes were thin, his eyes uncertain. A sleek black car pulled up nearby. A man stepped out, mid-40s, sharp suit, clipboard in hand. He walked over, crouched down. "Hey," he said. "Name's Marcus. I work with the Shine Project." The young man blinked. "We've been watching your corner. You've got discipline, presence. You show up every day. Have you ever thought about doing something more?" The boy shrugged. "Ain't nobody ever asked me that." Marcus smiled. "Well, we're asking now." He handed over a card. The logo shone in gold foil, the Shine Project. The boy looked up, eyes wide. "Why me?" Marcus looked him in the eye. "Because someone once saw the shine in me too.